Rx Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition and Liquid Sun Rays. I'm your host, Heath. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions, life, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo from our Cape Coral studios. Dave, first of all, how is the weather by you? I know a lot of people have been asking in this second. You have your Secrets to Becoming a Diet Guru course around the corner.
Yeah, I hate talking about the weather, but I always wind up talking about the weather. We're not getting hit. The Panhandle, the top of Florida, is what's getting hit by the storm right now. We may have some some nasty winds and stuff like that, but we're not getting hit. Plus, after last year's hurricane, I went and installed full, and I've talked about this on Heavy Muscle Radio, full building generators on my house and on obviously the RxMuscle studios, which is across the driveway from us. So even if we get hit with the storm, nothing's happening. We're not losing any electricity or anything like that. So I'm not dealing with that anymore. And like I said, if it was a deterrent to never have a hurricane again, it's fine too. Now, the Secrets of Becoming a Diet Guru course is not this weekend, it's the weekend after that. It's the 20th of October. And I still have a couple seats left. So guys, if you want to sign up, it's DavePalumbo.com. I talked about it last week. We had a good response. I had a surge of people sign up after it. Once again, if you guys want to be a coach or if you want to just learn how the body works, nutrition, supplementation, performance-enhancing drugs, how to create cycles and diets in off-season and pre-contest, men, women, detoxification, I teach you everything basically. And I give you an 85-page book that's probably worth $10,000. It's every protocol I've ever developed in that book in one little, concise way. It's a lot of information that I don't even talk about in there that you guys can read on the toilet in there. It's a very information-packed book that you get to take home with you. Most people take notes in the book during the course. It's a 10-hour class. It's one day out of your life. Like I said, you're going to get 4 years of college education in this one day. And you get to go out to lunch with me. I take you out to lunch too. So how much better does it get than that? No, but we have fun. It's a fun day. The people who come to the course are really into it, and you wind up making friends with them. Everyone makes friends and exchanges numbers and stuff like that. It's like if you're really into the bodybuilding world, and this is something that you're going to want to make a career out of, this is almost like a no-brainer to take this thing. It's worth every penny that you spend on it, and once again, it will pay off in dividends because you'll be such a more knowledgeable coach, and you'll be able to field questions from people, and it will translate into people's recommendations. So guys, don't be smart. If you want to do something for a living, you got to be an expert at it, and this is going to help you do that. So hopefully, I'll see a lot of people. We already have, like I said, about 12 people signed up. So I have 3 more spots available. Don't wait, because once they fill up, that's it. I only let so many people in because I like to keep the classes small. And that's really it. And once again, it's a busy week over here at RxMuscle. We got the part 2 and part 3 of Phil Heath interview going up today. Yesterday we put part 2 up. Part 3 will be tomorrow. And the response has been good. Obviously some people don't like, that Phil is being a certain way. And then if you keep watching the interview as it progresses, it becomes like an evolution of his whole character. So I liked the interview a lot. I thought it was really good. It was something I'd never heard from him before. It was insightful. And obviously the response to people watching it are validating what I'm saying here.
So again, the part 2 of the Phil Heath interview is live right now at RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel. Part 3, the final installment, going live tomorrow. Let's go to the questions. The first 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, Dave, when using IGF-1, do we need to consume carbs after the shot? Is it optimal to have carbs or not?
Yeah, I would definitely eat carbs with the IGF-1 shot because as the name of it indicates, IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, it has an insulin-like effect. It drops your blood sugar because the IGF-1 molecule can bind to insulin receptors and act like insulin. That's not how it builds muscle. The way it builds muscle is it binds to IGF-1 receptors on the muscle and it initiates a hyperplasia of the muscle cells, of the satellite cells, also known as stem cells, and it turns them into new muscle tissue. But it has that extra effect, so it will drop your blood sugar, okay? So you definitely want to take in some carbohydrates with IGF-1. I don't recommend that people use IGF-1 pre-contest. I have them use it for the off-season, okay? Because that's when we're trying to grow and we can maximize the amount of nutrients we put into our body. I noticed a lot of people have also told me that, and I noticed this when I first took it, that sometimes you get headaches from it. And I don't know if it's because it drops your blood sugar and you're getting that low blood sugar headache, or if it just causes a little bit of a headache. I also noticed that and I never checked on blood work to see if this is true or not, but I noticed that potassium levels can get a little low. Cramping sometimes becomes a little more prevalent while you're training on IGF-1. I don't know if it's a sodium depletion or potassium. I assumed it's potassium only because I eat a lot of salt in my diet. I would sip a Gatorade, sometimes eat a couple extra bananas in my diet, and that seemed to have solved the problem for that. That was back in the 90s when I used it. So I don't know if anyone else out there has noticed these things, but these are things I do notice with IGF use.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Are there any hormones or AIs that you feel could improve health and health markers? So any hormones or AIs that you feel could improve health and health markers?
Unfortunately, most hormones and aromatase inhibitors decrease health markers for some reason. I don't know why that is, if it's ironic or not. But, I haven't really noticed. I haven't done blood work yet to really, I've been playing around with some of these healing peptides that Titan Medical has been producing. The BPC 157 and the TB4. And I haven't really checked blood work since I used them, so I don't really know if my health markers got better. I do know that I heal a little better on that stuff, so that I can validate. Now, obviously, if you're healing better, whether you can check health markers or not for it, that has to be a good thing, I would think. As far as other hormones that I would recommend taking, I mean, obviously, if your testosterone is low chronically, and you add a replacement dose in there and bring it up to high normal, you're going to feel better. You're definitely going to feel better, but it might not improve your health markers. It might actually drop your HDLs a little bit. It might raise your red blood cell count a little bit, which to a certain degree is good until it gets too high. So once again, whenever you put hormones into your body, it's about trying to balance them. That means that you have to go for blood work every 3 to 6 months and see what's going on. If your estrogen's too high, then you got to take an aromatase inhibitor. If your DHT levels are too high, you got to take like a Testalized product to kind of lower that a little bit. So you have to be aware of these hormones. That's why when people ask me, I give out these free blood work, lists of blood work you should do, because I want people to monitor these specific values, and if they do get out of range, address it.
A lot of good questions lined up. We're going to take them from our Instagram handle, official_RxMuscle. Go to Phil Will. Dave, do you think training style affects the look of a bodybuilder? Say how Dorian and Jordan Peters have both that grainy look compared to high volume guys are more round and smooth. So training style affecting the look of a bodybuilder.
Look, I always trained heavy duty like Dorian, high intensity, and I had that grainy look too. I think you build more dense muscle, when you train with heavy weights, with good form, of course. That doesn't mean just hurl the weights around. I think when you have superior genetics and you just kind of pump the muscle up and you still grow, I just don't think the density is there. I think you get the volume, but I don't think you get the density of the muscle. Having said that, that's probably the most unscientific explanation I've ever given in my life of anything. But it's true. It's empirical. You see it. Once again, I don't know if it's just the fact that the guys that tend to find that they need to train heavy to grow just have that kind of muscle, and the guys who don't really, in other words, if you don't have to lift super heavy and you put muscle on, we were talking about this with regards to Paul Dillette. Paul Dillette would do 30-pound dumbbell curls and he had 24-inch arms. I mean, why lift more than that if you can grow 24-inch arms, with the 30-pound dumbbell curl? And he never looked like his muscle looked grainy and hard. So I think it's really a genetic thing how the muscle looks. But I think size in general, if you want to put size and create a convoluted three-dimensional looking muscle, you need to lift heavy.
Let's go to Lee Maltis. Now, again, I preface this by saying we've gotten all sorts of comments and questions regarding Phil Heath in light of the interview, which is at part 2 right now. Part 3 is going to be tomorrow. Lee Maltis, should Phil Heath get into acting?
Maybe he should do WWE. I don't know. He's a good look. I think he's got a good. I gotta think he's got a good personality for TV.
He's well-spoken.
He'd probably fit right into Hollywood. I don't know what he can do. Or if he wants to act, or if that's something that interests him or not. Obviously, he'd have to downsize himself. He's pretty big for I guess you could say a guy who would be going into Hollywood. I don't know if that's if even in his wheelhouse. He seems like he likes business. That's that's what his major was in college. To me, I think he's going to get involved in some different businesses, probably related to the bodybuilding world. Maybe some not. Maybe he's get some opportunities. Look, he is 7-time Mr. Olympia. When Bruce Jenner won the Olympic decathlon in 1976, okay, he never did another athletic thing after that. He played golf, so just on an amateur, very hobbyist level, even though he was really good at it. But he never did anything else, and he's been still making money from winning that decathlon, in 1976. So if you think about it, or I should say Caitlyn Jenner, if I want to be politically correct, Phil Heath, unless he's going to turn into a woman, which I don't think he is, I think that he can be successful in anything he puts his mind to. I think that he has to just figure out what it is that he likes to do, and I think he's in that transition period where he's trying to test the waters out. I have a feeling that he might not even do anything in bodybuilding. Who knows? Or maybe he'll promote shows. I don't know. He's got to find what he gravitates towards, what resonates with him as a person that he enjoys. But it seems like just from talking to him, he enjoys business, and that's something that he'd like to get into. I think that's really why he left Muscle Tech and went into his own company, Gifted Nutrition. I think he really wanted to do something in business, and that was something that like I wouldn't have wanted to. I would have just taken the check from Muscle Tech until they stopped paying me. But I think he really was like, this is something that I can get my hands around. I enjoy it. He didn't realize that it would be very distracting for him as Mr. Olympia to have to worry about his own business now. And I think he underestimated the time involvement that it would require. But, that was a good learning experience for him. I think now that if he's not going to compete anymore, at least he said he's not competing in 19, he has a whole year to really devote to developing a business plan and a business that he says he's got 2 businesses he's thinking about doing. One that he hinted about was starting his own podcast. He might be super successful. Maybe he'd be a good interviewer, interviewing other people. I don't know. Like I said, you can never tell about a person because you don't know what's inside them. We're just starting to really find out about Phil Heath, and that's why this interview was so good.
Dave, after I ask this question, I want you to touch on your appearance in Oxygen TV's Killer Couples. Question relevant to that is from Stolen Duck. Can Kelly Ryan make a comeback? And if she can, could her story be a bigger impact story than, say, the Kevin Levrone comeback of 2016?
I don't think we're ever going to see Kelly Ryan again. I would be very, very surprised. I think she's probably embarrassed by what happened. I think she's probably very upset by what happened. I'm sure she's happy to be out of prison. I'm sure, think about it, she can never really put this behind her. She's stigmatized wherever she goes. I mean, they're still running stories. I mean, you don't think every person who lives near her, wherever she happens to be hiding out now, saw this thing? It was an interesting, they had approached me and asked me to do it. They really didn't have any other competitors who they were going to interview. They had seen some rant I did on it, I had done about a year ago on it, and they felt that I would be good at providing information. And to me, they had me there as the comic relief, so to speak. They had the psychologist, they had the investigator, they had the lawyers there, and then they had me, who was like providing like the goofy content as to who they really were and what was going on, and I was validating what everyone was saying. So I guess I played a little role. It was fun. It was they interviewed me for about an hour and a half. They only used a couple minutes of what you're going to do, and I thought they used a decent amount of what I said. I thought it came off well. I thought it was more of a fluff piece. I didn't really think it was a real investigative piece, although I learned a little bit about what happened more so than I even knew. So that, I guess in that sense, it was informative. It's a sad, the whole thing is kind of sad because you know what? I don't think that Kelly and Craig were really bad people. I think they made some poor choices, and it probably was probably more predicated on the fact that they were really, really messed up on drugs at the time. And that's no excuse because someone lost their life and they have to pay the price for that crime. Craig will probably pay for it his whole life. I don't know if we'll ever see him get out of the prison, but Kelly has a chance to do something now. I don't think she'll go back into the fitness industry. I don't think the fitness industry would accept her, to be honest with you, at this point. That's a pretty heinous crime. It's not like she robbed a bank, which people would find glamorous, or sold drugs, which people find glamorous. Murder's like serious, and it was someone that was in the industry, and it's just, I think that you're going to see her working in a church or someplace like that, and just staying out of the limelight. And you know what? I probably would do the same thing. I don't know if she can even. There's no way for her to rejuvenate her persona at this point. And I don't know if she wants to. How do you get, if she sat down with me and did an interview, what could she possibly say? We killed her? I mean, there's no way she can come out of it looking good. They did the crime, whether it was an accident or not, it happened. They made a very poor decision not to report it immediately. And they have to live with the repercussions of this now. So it's a sad case, but I don't think we'll ever see her again.
Let's go to White Dog Farm. Surprised we don't get more questions about this. Suggestions to help with prostate health, and do you believe supplements enlarge prostates?
Do I believe in supplements in what?
Enlarge prostate.
Oh, enlarge prostate. I don't think in supplements enlarge prostate at all. I think that people who are predisposed to enlarged prostates, okay, will have issues when DHT or dihydrotestosterone levels are high in the body. Now, DHT is not the same thing as DHEA. DHEA is, or dihydroepiandrosterone, is a hormone produced by the adrenal glands. It's important to differentiate that. DHT is a hormone that's produced from conversion from testosterone. So testosterone can convert into estrogen or it can convert into DHT. And when you're a young boy, the DHT is responsible for the development of the secondary sex characteristics, enlarged jaw, deepening of the voice. It can cause acne. It can ultimately cause hair loss and prostate enlargement as we get older. So it seems like there's a genetic time clock in all of us. And when a certain alarm goes off, now all of a sudden the body is prone to that prostate enlarging itself in response to DHT. So what I always tell people, my Testalized product from Species Nutrition really helps reduce DHT levels. We use a very refined salt palmetto extract, much more so than any of the other ones you get out on the market. It's a very expensive extract too. And it inhibits that, it doesn't completely inhibit it, it kind of blunts the production of testosterone to the DHT. So it doesn't get rid of it completely, but it keeps it low. And when you do that, you find that you won't break out as much. Acne-wise, your prostate will not get as irritated if it's prone to that, and you won't lose as much hair. A lot of teens and women are using Testalized to prevent acne. You know, that seems to be, it works really well for that. So if it works well for acne, you know it's also protecting the prostate. So if you have prostate issues now, and or if you are genetically predisposed because your family members have them, I would take the Testalized prophylactically as a preventative. The good thing about Testalized too is it balances estrogen too. So it balances estrogen, DHT, keeps testosterone in optimal range. So that's something that you can do preventative. Now, if you get to the point where you have like just this, pathologic, chronically inflamed prostate that nothing's working on, then you might have to think about using, like a drug like finasteride. But I wouldn't use finasteride unless absolutely necessary.
Let's go to R Jucket 8. Dave, here's a different question. How bad is nicotine for bodybuilders? It curbs appetite amazingly well. Do many competitors use it, and how can it negatively affect a physique?
Yeah, well, nicotine is not good for the body because it's a vasoconstrictor. It makes the blood vessels smaller, and constricts them, which obviously can lead to higher blood pressures, can cause, lack of oxygen delivery to the muscles properly, which obviously is not going to help your body recover well from workouts. Obviously, you want as much blood in the muscle as possible. And they've found that it increases the incidence of coronary heart disease. So we don't want nicotine in the body. It's not good. It's not good. When people say cigarettes are not good for cause cardiovascular problems, it's not because of the smoke. The smoke can cause like lung cancer and stuff like that, or emphysema, but it's the nicotine that's bad for the cardiovascular system. So not a good drug to be using. Okay, not good for bodybuilding purposes. Yeah, it may curb your appetite, but you know what? It does a hell of a lot of other terrible things to the body. I can think of a lot of better things to use to curb your appetite than nicotine.
Let's go to Jeremy TL. As a topic that you talked to Sean Ray about, Wesley Vissers about. How often do you feel an athlete should be posing? Do you feel it changed the overall look of the muscle, as Sean Ray suggested on Live With?
I don't know if it changes the look of the muscle as much as it changes the way you can move and manipulate and show off the muscle on stage, your presentation, your posing endurance. That's what's really important. So, close to a show, I'd like to ideally say you should spend at least 20 to 30 minutes a day. An hour would be ideal. Obviously, if you have that hour to dedicate to it, to work on your posing endurance. Okay, I remember I used to pose. I don't know. I used to pose at night. And as you guys know, anyone who competes at you always look the best in the morning when you're dieting, and you look the worst at night because you're retaining fluid by the end of the day. And I would pose, and I hated the way I looked at night. But I don't know why. I just couldn't do it in the morning. I just didn't have time. So I would do it at night, like seriously, like 12 midnight. I had this huge mirror in my Seaford, New York house. And I would turn the lights on and I would pose. And I hated the way, I was like, wanted to throw up looking at myself in the mirror because I was all bloated, from the whole day of eating. I had already eaten like 6 meals or 5 or 6 meals. And it got to the point where I would pose, I would make myself do it like 30, 45 minutes every single day before a show. And by 2 weeks out, all of a sudden things would start looking good. And I knew a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was getting in posing shape, so to speak. You're building. It's like going to ride a bike or run outside. The first couple of times you do it, you're winded. Everything's hurting you. You don't feel good. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And that's the same thing with posing. That's why you have to do it, even if it's 15, 20 minutes a day. Make time in your schedule to do it every single day, especially that last 8 weeks before a show, because what you'll get is you're building posing endurance. You're building confidence on stage. And you're building nerve pathways to make the poses themselves second nature, so you don't have to think about it.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com. Reminder: Part 2 of the Phil Heath interview is live right now at RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel. Part 3, the final installment, going live tomorrow. King T. Chan, how do good fats and essential fatty acids help on building muscle along with protein?
I've mentioned this a bunch of times too, but like I said, it's a lot of these ideas that we talk about here on the show. It's good to repeat them because the more you hear them, the more they become solidified in your brain. I obviously know them, so when I talk about it, I feel like I'm repeating myself 6,000 times. But the bottom line is that as far as muscle building goes and essential fatty acids, okay, a muscle cell is kind of like a long sheet of tissue. They're long cells. They're not round cells like you would think of in cell biology class. And when these cells break down, okay, and they spill the contents of their cells into the bloodstream, okay, and you have to rebuild the cell again, you're rebuilding the internal components, which are 95% protein, right? But the exterior surrounding the cell, the outer portion of this, is made up of a fatty cell membrane. The cell membrane is the outer sheath of the cell that protects it from the environment and keeps certain stuff in and certain stuff out. And when that breaks down, that's made up of essential fatty acids. If you don't consume these essential fats in your diet, your body can't make them on their own. So you're not going to be able to optimally repair muscle tissue. So what you're doing is you're creating a lack of nutrients, okay, a lack of raw materials necessary to repair muscle. And especially if you want to build new muscle tissue, okay, you certainly need an overabundance of these essential fatty acids. So here you are eating all this good protein, okay, and giving your body the raw materials to repair the internal components of the cell, but you're not eating or giving your body the raw materials to repair the outer components of the cell. So you're limiting how much muscle your body can grow. And so that's why it's important to get enough fat in your diet on a daily basis. And when you do this, you'll see that you start growing and that you respond more optimally to weight training. And there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate, so you can eat all the carbs you want. That's just a fuel source. But fat actually plays a role in building and repairing muscle.
Let's go to Ron Giacalone. Recently, I came across an open discussion with Tom Platz about steroid cycles of pro bodybuilders during his era. He claims that no one used testosterone and instead based their cycle on primarily DECA and D-bol. He claimed that many bodybuilders experimented with testosterone but ceased using it because it came with too many side effects. He also said that a typical side effects associated with DECA were never experienced back then. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you see, the reason, and I've said this before as well, a lot of these side effects that guys see today with trenbolone, the lack of sex drive or the inability to get an erection, same thing with DECA, they come because guys are taking too much of it, okay? It's a dose-related thing. Guys never really had side effects from DECA back in the 70s and 80s, even into the 90s, because no one used more than 400 milligrams a week. Now guys take 400 milligrams in one shot. They do 1,200 milligrams a week. They do 800 milligrams. it's dose related. You take too much of anything and you're going to produce a lot. In other words, I don't think at 400 or 500 milligrams a week of DECA you're producing any prolactin. But when you start getting up into the 600, 700, 800, 900 milligrams of DECA a week, 1,000 milligrams, you're producing a lot of prolactin, and that's going to cause side effects. It's going to cause prolactin-induced gynecomastia. It might inhibit your ability to have an erection, because that's what prolactin does in high amounts. And that's the problem. Now I think guys didn't use testosterone because they didn't really understand. They figured, well, testosterone is what our body produces already. Let's just take the anabolic steroids because that's what our body doesn't produce and we want to build muscle from it. I don't think they had a great understanding of how the drugs worked. And if they had, the guys probably would have been bigger back then. So I think in a sense, not using testosterone was a mistake back then that they didn't really understand. And I think that the thing that they did do right unconsciously was not using excessive doses.
We got a question last week from an older gentleman talking about certain changes that come with age. Flex JC is a two-part question, and the second part is one I think a lot of people can relate to because they're either using this product or they hear commercials about it all the time. As an older bodybuilder, 63 years old, I can't seem to firm up my outer lower chest. Is this something that occurs with age, or am I leaving out a particular exercise that may help? All right, that's part one. Part two, how do you feel about all these testosterone boosters, example, Nugenics, that you're hearing about these days? So the first about the outer lower chest, and the second about test boosters like Nugenics.
Yeah, that area around the nipple, I see a lot of guys have a lot of sag here as they get older, and I think that's a lack of, it's like women's boobs that sag. They lose the connective tissue there. And, all guys have some glandular tissue there, just like all women do. Some women have big boobs, some have small boobs. Some men have big boobs, some men have small boobs. I think as we get older, the ones who have more tissue there, gravity starts pulling them down and they don't look so good. Now, I had mine taken out in 1991, my gynecomastia, so I don't have any glandular tissue there. So even though I've lost a lot of muscle, when you look at my chest, I don't have any sag going on in my nipple because there's nothing pulling it down. So that has a lot to do with genetics. It has nothing to do with training technique whatsoever. As far as the testosterone boosters, I just spoke a lot about Testalize, and I explained how it worked. I'm not into these compounds that just say, oh, we boost testosterone, because there's not that many natural ingredients that are going to significantly increase testosterone. What you have to do is you have to target testosterone optimization. In other words, we know that when the testicles release testosterone, that a certain percentage will convert to estrogen and a certain percentage will convert to DHT. That means you're losing that testosterone, okay? And when you produce a lot of estrogen, the estrogen will then shut your pituitary gland off and will limit the amount of testosterone you're producing. So my whole take is, let's get rid of excess estrogen. Let's block the conversion of testosterone into DHT, because if you get rid of estrogen, you don't address DHT, you produce more DHT, and then you have those problems to deal with. And once you get rid of those two hormones, or limit them, now you have more available for building muscle. More testosterone as testosterone naturally occurring in the body. Then if you put a little bit of a boosting effect on that testosterone production, using a couple natural ingredients, now you get the best of all worlds. You have estrogen blockade, DHT blockade. The estrogen will now no longer inhibit your pituitary. You get the pituitary working full blast now, and now you're boosting testosterone also with a couple herbal products. That to me is the ultimate way to boost testosterone, and that's why Testalize is such a great selling product, because once people use it, they realize, holy mackerel, this stuff works. And it works because there's science behind it. A lot of these companies just go and they look, all right, what's the most popular testosterone boosting agents out there? They throw a whole bunch of them in a formula. Most of the time they don't even put how much is in there. They put a proprietary formula, and then they just market the crap out of it and hope that people will buy it. And a lot of people do, because they don't know any better. They don't have the education to understand the nuances or the differences between the compounds. They just look at price and they look at flashiness of the ad. And so, that's why it's important that you educate yourself and understand what you're buying before you spend your money.
A couple of quick hitters. Justin Marvin and a couple of other people actually asked the same question. Your take on the recent BCA versus EAA debate. Where do you stand on that?
Well, essential amino acids obviously are 8 specific amino acids that our bodies just can't seem to synthesize on their own. So in other words, you could take in other amino acids, your bodies can't interconvert them. So you need to take these in on a daily basis. Of those 8, 3 of them are what we call the branch-chain amino acids: leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Now, these 3 branch chains also are essential essential amino acids. And in the past, people have just taken just the 3 branch chains. Now, it's kind of silly to take just the 3 branch chains and not take all the other essentials. So when I put together Amino Evolved, which is a fermented amino acid product, meaning we don't get the amino acids from human hair from Chinese barbershops. We actually get it from companies that ferment these amino acids using bacteria to express them, and then they isolate them. So we know exactly what we're getting, and they're a much more purified amino acid. Now, the advantage of this is obviously, well, not of the fermentation process. The advantage of using an essential essential amino acid product like we use is that you're getting all the essential aminos in there. Milos, I know Milos Sarcev is a huge believer in essentials, and he's right. Why take only 3 in? You might as well take all 8 in. Even better than that is a whey protein isolate that has all the amino acids in there. But I understand if you're doing something quick, intra-workout, you can't have time to digest things. If you're using it like during a time of day when you normally don't eat, maybe you're taking a little drink before you do some cardio in the morning. If you're not looking to maximize fat burning, but you're just doing it for health purposes, an amino acid drink is great. My son drinks Amino Evolved all day long. Mimis, he calls them. He loves them. And I feel very confident giving it to him because they're pure amino acids. I know there's no impurities in there. And once again, it's all the essentials his body needs. So if he's going to snack on something or he's going to drink something, I'd much rather have him do that than drinking tons of juice that has tons of sugar in it. So once again, if you're going to ask which is better, the essential aminos are always going to be better, as long as they're rich in branch chains. Sometimes there's companies that cheap out and don't put a lot of branch chains. But if you're going to put essentials in there, the branch chains are going to be in there already. You might as well boost their content up like we do.
Now you're going to have to think about this one. This is a heavy question. We've always asked questions about your career and what would have been different had you competed now.
Yeah.
Michael McCarthy 007. Dave, if you were at your prime now, you would have been a pro. That's a given. But where do you think you would have placed at the Mr. Olympia?
I don't think I would have ever. I don't think I would have placed top 10 at the Mr. Olympia. I don't think I would have even qualified. I think I would have been a popular pro because I had a lot of muscle and a lot of conditioning, and I was entertaining on stage, and I was one of the bigger guys. I don't think I would have been a great pro. So in essence, probably not getting a pro card was a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to leave bodybuilding while I still had my health and while I still was very popular and transition into doing business. Otherwise, I probably would have stayed around too long, trying. Hey, I'm a pro now. I got to try to win a pro show, which never would have happened, I don't think, unless I lucked into one, where no one showed up. Look, I know what my limitations were. In the gym, you put a tank top on me, or even no tank top, and you do a photo shoot with me. There's not many guys that would stand next to me because I was so grainy and hard, and I had a lot of muscle. And people really love that, and that's really what we love to see, as fans. But as a competitive bodybuilder, imagine me standing next to Sean Roden, I would look terrible. He would exploit every structural weakness I had. So I'm realistic about my physique. It would have been nice to get the pro card. It's kind of like a diploma from college. But then again, I never graduated from medical school, and I probably practice more medicine than most doctors do out there on a daily basis. So be it,
On that note, that's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave, again brought to you by Species Nutrition and Liquid Sunrays. Reminder, right now at RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel, part 2 of our sit-down interview with Phil Heath. Tomorrow, part 3, the final installment, will be live. For Dave Palumbo and Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.